Hi everyone, welcome back to the Coda Financial Coaching channel, where we talk all things budgeting, saving, investing, and your road to financial freedom. And today I wanted to address a question I've been getting from a lot of people. That is, should I invest in NVIDIA stock? Now, I understand there's a lot of FOMO out there, right? This stock has just been killing it this past year, especially in this past week when it released its year-end and quarter-ended results for the year ended January 28, 2024. It has just shot up. So I'll definitely talk a bit about its results, about the background of the company, but really this video is more to get into the psychology of FOMO and ways that you can prevent that you can invest in a way that doesn't expose you to outdo risk or undue risk, but still allows you to reap the benefits that you're seeing all these people that have already invested in NVIDIA reap. So first of all, let's give a hat tip to NVIDIA. I mean, even for a company in the high growth technology sector, this stock has just absolutely killed it in this past year. And you can see it deserves it from its results, right? Its quarterly revenue for Q4, it's up 265% from a year ago. Its full year revenue, it's up 126%. So this company has been absolutely dominant. I totally understand the FOMO, right? So I wanted to get into a few reasons why it's different than just your meme stock, right? This is definitely not a GameStop. It is not a Lucid Motors circa 2021. This is a great company, right? So the first reason is it is the most established company in the graphics processing unit sector. So originally that was really meant to be for gaming chips, stuff like that, stuff that you really needed a lot of graphics. And they made a bet on that. And really they've just totally cornered that market. And it turns out that that's exactly what AI needs, right? Artificial intelligence. Now guys, don't come at me for not being an expert in AI. I know I'm not the technology guy. This is just broad strokes, but AI is really poised in the next 10 years to be an amazing growth sector, and NVIDIA has uniquely positioned itself to take advantage of that as compared to other chip makers, right? So that's one reason. Second reason is they've really established relationships with other major technology companies like Microsoft and Amazon, Tesla, companies like those. They are just a huge provider, right? So that's another reason that they're poised to do really well. Third reason is AI, really, it is almost recession proof. And it's almost like not only recession proof, but it's going to do well no matter what, because obviously companies are going to need it as they automate processes in the next 10 years. But also, when times get tough, companies, for better or worse, they look to AI to perform more of their more data entry and, simpler functions that used to be done by humans. So you're both in a recession and a growth environment, really getting the benefits of AI. And that's why NVIDIA is just poised for a long time to become the dominant player in that industry, right? And benefit from it. So those are some really good cases for wanting to get into AI, for having FOMO about not having been in it, but wanting to get into it now. Now, if we take a step back though, just like all technology, there are some things where we can falter, right? So the first thing is inflation. Inflation really hits technology companies, guys, and the main reason is because technology tends to be higher growth. And when we have higher growth companies, they are more susceptible to inflation because inflation cuts into their projected returns, which are really high. And that over a company that's projected to really grow like gangbusters in the next, let's say 10 years, the compounding effects of inflation cutting into that can really do damage as compared to a more established company like Coca-Cola that's lower growth, right? Coca-Cola doesn't depend on high growth to keep on feeding its stock price. What you see is what you get, right? So that's one disadvantage, is the inflationary environment, which has gotten better in the past year, maybe year and a half or so, but there's no guarantee that it'll stay that way. The other thing is, of course, the supply chain issues that we have seen be relieved in the past year and a half or so, but are still not completely gone. And they could come back. We're obviously susceptible still to pandemics and geopolitical events like what we're seeing going on in Russia and the Middle East right now, severely disrupting the flow of goods and services, right? And that, once again, that also has an outsized effect on technology. So that's all to say that we don't want to get too much into one stock, especially, or into one sector, but especially one stock. So, but having said those things, this is still a great stock, though let's face it, we do not want to go all into it. And let me tell you that there is a way to get around that a little bit if you're willing to take on a little bit more risk, guys. And that is, let's instead, in my past videos, I've recommended really that if you're a beginner investor, that you get all in either the S&P 500 fund or you get in a total stock index fund. But if you really want to expose yourself to NVIDIA and an ecosystem that includes NVIDIA, what you can do instead of trying to predict that NVIDIA is going to be the next Apple that you cannot miss out in is instead get in on an ETF that's more focused towards technology. So let's give you a few options to do that here. So what I like, of course, guys, I'm a fan of Vanguard. Once again, I'm not sponsored by Vanguard, but they're just such a great company with great customer service. They have low fees. And one thing we can do is get into the Vanguard Technology Fund. So I'm going to scroll up to the top. I'll get the exact title here. It is the Vanguard Information Technology ETF, VGT. It does have a little bit higher of an expense ratio than we see with an S&P 500. Actually, well, it's triple, but it's still low in relative terms. It's right around that 0.1% sweet spot that I like to keep my clients below, right? So it's right there at the kind of high end of that. So has a low expense ratio, still higher than S&P 500. That's because it is a bit more managed than the S&P 500, which of course is just based on an index. So let's go down to its portfolio here, right? So I'm going to scroll down to its stocks. Right here, you can see that NVIDIA is still, as of course, what is this date? As of January 31st, it's a lower valuation. Of course, guys, this is going to shoot up. This just hasn't been updated yet. It's as of January 31st, but that value is going to shoot up right there. So we want to keep this. We don't want to just go all in into NVIDIA because we still see some great companies in this technology fund. We see Microsoft. We see Apple. Guys, these are companies that have been making returns for decades now, especially Apple and Microsoft. We do not just want to run totally away from these and get into the latest hot thing, knowing that either competition or supply side shocks or other factors could bring NVIDIA back down to earth. So that's one fund we could get into instead of investing a portion of our portfolio in NVIDIA. Another fund we can get into is the Invesco QQQ. Now, this is actually a little bit more balanced, and it has more of those kind of sexy technology companies that we tend to see, and it is based on the NASDAQ Index 100, which is basically an index that leans heavily towards technology. The only thing I don't like about this is it has a higher expense ratio than the Vanguard, but if you want to be exposed more towards your sexy sort of meta companies and Amazon and Tesla, we can see there probably is a faster way. Okay, we're down at the portfolio now. If you want to be exposed more to more sexy technology companies than just Microsoft and Apple, QQQ may be a good option for you. And the good news, if you're in Vanguard, that's what I recommend. you can still purchase this fund from Vanguard, even though it isn't a Vanguard fund. Lastly, last ETF that I'd recommend if you want exposure is this spider fund right here, the XLK. That's really exposed to a lot of good technology stocks as well. It's similar to the Vanguard Technology Fund over here. So let's just go down to its portfolio. And I think it has a pretty good, actually has the best expense ratio of all our funds right here. So let's go down to the portfolio right here and see what stocks are in it. Once again, we're seeing kind of the titans, the decades-long dominators right here. Microsoft, Apple, NVIDIA. It's definitely going to rebalance towards NVIDIA. And it also has some of the more established traditional technology companies as well. So as far as how much money we should put in these right here. So I still recommend, guys, that you have a good, at least, if you're a beginner investor, at least 70 to 80% of your stock in either the S&P 500 or if you want a little bit more diversification in the total stock index fund, right? But if you don't want 100% of that in and you really want to lean your portfolio towards technology because the FOMO is just killing you right here, then I would say to put anywhere from 20 to 30% in here, right? So obviously consult whatever financial advisor you have, but that's typically the maximum there. And that way you're not exposed completely to NVIDIA, but you've still got a good chunk in there. And you also have NVIDIA from being in either your S&P 500 fund or from your NVIDIA fund right here, guys. So basically by doing that, by having 70 to 80% in either the S&P 500 or the total stock index fund, you're still in the broader market, but then you're also just weighting your portfolio to be a little more risky, a little bit more technology oriented. And that way you know that you're getting pretty much all the gains that you would normally get from the technology sector without much of the drawback of depending on one company and going on that very unpredictable roller coaster. So guys, that's it for today. Wanted to just address the FOMO, get rid of that for some of you, and good luck in your investing journey, and I will talk to you soon.